My name is Rosie. I'm 56 and I've spent my entire life as a dedicated nurse and an even more dedicated mother to my only daughter, Samantha. Nothing could have prepared me for that middle-of-the-night phone call while I was lying in a hospital bed recovering from emergency surgery. Her voice was breathless with excitement. "Mum, I'm getting married. I've sold my apartment and car. We're starting fresh," I replied calmly, despite the shock. "Okay, but you forgot one thing. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to hear what my daughter had forgotten in this life-changing moment." I've always been proud of the relationship Samantha and I built together. After her father left when she was just 2 years old, it was just the two of us against the world. Every decision I made centered around giving her the best possible life, even when that meant working double shifts at the hospital to afford her dance lessons or tutoring. Those years weren't easy, but watching Samantha blossom into a bright, determined young woman made every sacrifice worthwhile. I can still picture her at her high school graduation valedictorian with scholarship offers from several prestigious universities. The pride I felt that day nearly burst my heart. Samantha chose to attend State University only an hour away from home. Though I encouraged her to spread her wings further if she wanted, I was secretly relieved when she chose to stay relatively close. Throughout her college years, we maintained our close bond, having Sunday dinners whenever possible, and speaking on the phone nearly every day. After graduating summa cum laude with a business degree, Samantha landed an entry-level position at a marketing firm in the city. We celebrated with a special dinner, and I surprised her with a modest but reliable car to help with her commute. The apartment she found was small, but in a safe neighborhood, and though it stretched my budget, I helped her with the down payment, putting it in my name for tax purposes, but making it clear it was her home. What I never told Samantha was how tight finances had become. Between helping with her education and my own retirement planning, I had little wiggle room. Still seeing her flourish in her independence filled me with such joy that any financial strain seemed worthwhile. About 6 months before that fateful night call, my health began deteriorating. What started as persistent fatigue and occasional chest pain eventually led to a diagnosis that shook my world. The doctors discovered a heart condition that would require surgery. I downplayed the seriousness when explaining it to Samantha, not wanting to burden her just as her career was taking off. "It's routine, honey," I assured her over the phone. "They'll have me in and out in no time." Samantha offered to take time off work to help, but I insisted she focus on an upcoming project. In retrospect, I realized my well-intentioned protection might have started the distance between us. The weeks leading up to my surgery, Samantha seemed increasingly distracted during our calls. She mentioned a new colleague named Jordan who had recently joined her team. From the way her voice lifted when speaking about him, I sensed there might be more than a professional relationship developing. "He's just so different from anyone I've met before," she gushed during one of our briefer conversations. "He's traveled everywhere and has all these amazing stories." I was happy she seemed excited, but noticed our calls growing shorter. When I asked if I could meet this Jordan, she always had a reason why the timing wasn't right. What concerned me more was when Samantha offered to help manage some of my finances while I focused on my health. Given my background in accounting before nursing, I had always handled our finances meticulously. Still, the gesture seemed thoughtful, and I agreed to add her to my accounts temporarily. "Just to help you out, Mum," she had said. "You need to focus on getting better." The day of my surgery arrived. The procedure was successful, but more complicated than anticipated, extending my hospital stay from the expected 3 days to over a week. Samantha visited briefly the day after surgery, seeming distracted and constantly checking her phone. I attributed her behavior to stress about my condition and her work responsibilities. "Everything's fine at work?" I asked, trying to engage her. Yes, everything's great. Actually better than great," she replied, with an odd smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. That was the last time I saw her in person before the call that would change everything. The night of the call remains etched in my memory with perfect clarity. After a week in the hospital, I was finally starting to feel more like myself, the worst of the post-surgical pain managed by medication. My room was quiet, except for the occasional beeping of monitors and the soft squeak of nurses' shoes in the hallway. Sleep had just begun to claim me when my phone vibrated on the bedside table. The harsh glow of the screen showed 2:17 a.m. and Samantha's face. Immediately, adrenaline pushed away any drowsiness. My daughter rarely called after 9 in the evening, let alone the middle of the night. "Samantha, is everything okay?" I answered, voice raspy with concern. "Mom, I'm so glad you answered. I wasn't sure if you'd be awake." She spoke rapidly, her words tumbling over each other with an excitement I hadn't heard from her in years. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" My mind raced to worst-case scenarios. No, everything's perfect. Actually, it's amazing. I'm calling because, well, I wanted you to be the first to know. I'm getting married." The statement hung in the air as I tried to process what she was saying. Married to whom? Jordan, the man she'd only mentioned in passing over the last few months. Before I could form a question, she continued, her words rushing like a river breaking through a dam. "I know this seems sudden, but when you know right. Jordan is incredible. He's shown me what life can be when you're not tied down. We're going to travel the world together. I've already sold my apartment and my car. We're leaving tomorrow." My heart seemed to stop for a moment. The apartment and car, the ones that were technically in my name. "Samantha, slow down. You've sold your apartment and car." I kept my voice measured despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. "Yes, we got amazing offers, almost too good to believe. The money's going toward our fresh start. Jordan has connections in Brazil. We're going to open a beachside cafe there. It's my once-in-a-lifetime chance at happiness, Mum." I closed my eyes, trying to center myself. Something felt terribly wrong, but confrontation would only push her away in this state. "I see. And when did you make this decision?" "We've been planning it for a few weeks now. I know I should have told you sooner, but with your surgery and everything, I didn't want to stress you out. And honestly, I was worried you'd try to talk me out of it." A few weeks. While I was focused on my health crisis, my daughter had been planning to leave the country with a man I'd never met. "When's the wedding?" I asked, buying time while my mind raced. "That's the other exciting part. We're having a quick ceremony tomorrow before our flight. Nothing fancy, just us and a couple of Jordan's friends as witnesses." She paused, then added more softly, "I know you probably can't make it because of the hospital, but I'll send photos." The casual dismissal of my presence at her wedding sent a fresh wave of pain through me that had nothing to do with my surgical incision. "Honey, don't you think this is moving very fast? You've only known Jordan for 3 months?" "Mom, please don't start. I knew you wouldn't understand. That's why I almost didn't call at all. Jordan said I should just leave a note, but I wanted to hear your voice before we left." Her tone had shifted from excitement to defensive frustration. "I'm not trying to ruin anything, Samantha. I just want to make sure you've thought this through." "I have. This is my chance to live, Mum. Not everyone wants to stay stuck in the same place forever like you did." The moment the words left her mouth, I could tell she regretted them. I didn't mean that. I took a deep breath, wincing at the pain it caused in my chest. "It's okay. You're excited, I understand. I should go. Jordan's waiting for me. We still have so much packing to do." Her voice had become distant. Something in me knew this might be my only chance to reach her. I needed to say something that would make her think without pushing her away completely. A delicate balance. "Okay," I said simply. "But you forgot one thing." There was a pause on the line. "What do you mean, what did I forget?" "The apartment and car, Samantha. They're not legally yours to sell." "What are you talking about? Of course they're mine. You gave them to me. They're in my name, honey. For tax purposes, remember, legally, you've just sold property that doesn't belong to you." The silence that followed was heavy. "No, that's not right. You must be confused because of the medication." "I'm thinking very clearly. Check the paperwork if you don't believe me. And by the way, where exactly are you planning to transfer all that money from the sales?" I need to go. The panic in her voice was evident now. Samantha, wait! I tried to keep her on the line, but heard only a click followed by silence. I lay there in the dark hospital room, my phone still clutched in my hand as tears began to roll down my cheeks. Something was terribly wrong with my daughter, and I was trapped in a hospital bed, unable to reach her. Throughout that endless night, I tried calling her back numerous times, each call going straight to voicemail. Sleep became impossible as my mind churned with worry and confusion. By the time the first hints of dawn appeared through my window, I had made a decision. Hospital or not, I needed to find my daughter before she made a mistake that couldn't be undone. The doctor was reluctant to discharge me a day early, but after signing a stack of forms, acknowledging I was leaving against medical advice, I was free to go. My nurse friend Patricia helped me into a taxi, concern etched on her face. Rosie, are you sure about this? You should be resting. My daughter needs me, was all I could say, and thankfully Patricia understood enough not to argue further. The taxi took me directly to my home first, where I needed to gather some important documents. As I moved slowly through my empty house, each step sending waves of pain through my healing incision, my phone rang. It was my bank. Ms. Elliott, this is Marcus from First National. We have some concerns about recent activity on your accounts that we wanted to verify with you. My stomach dropped as Marcus detailed multiple large withdrawals from our joint account over the past week, totaling nearly $80,000. Almost my entire savings. No, I whispered. I didn't authorize those withdrawals. After ending the call with the bank, who promised to investigate but warned the money might already be gone, I made my way to my home office. With trembling hands, I unlocked my filing cabinet, pulling out the folder containing all the property documents. Sure enough, both the apartment and car were legally in my name, with Samantha only listed as an authorized occupant and driver. I had planned to transfer them fully to her name on her 30th birthday, along with a small trust my parents had left her. My next call was to the bank where I kept my safe deposit box containing family jewelry passed down through generations. The manager confirmed someone had accessed it yesterday using the spare key I had given to Samantha for emergencies. The woman said she was your daughter, he explained apologetically. She had identification and the key. She emptied the contents. Clutching the property documents and ignoring the growing pain in my chest, I called another taxi to take me to Samantha's apartment. The 30-minute ride felt like hours, my mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. Samantha's apartment building looked the same as always, its familiar brick exterior offering no hint of the turmoil inside. When I knocked on her door and received no answer, I approached her neighbor, Mrs. Gonzalez, who had always been friendly. "Oh, Rosie, I thought Samantha would have told you," Mrs. Gonzalez said, surprise evident on her face. "She's been selling everything, had some sort of yard sale in the hallway last weekend, said she was moving overseas with her new boyfriend." "Have you met him, this boyfriend?" I asked. Mrs. Gonzalez frowned. "Only in passing. Tall fellow, very charming on the surface, but something about him didn't sit right with me. Very controlling, always speaking for Samantha when I tried to talk to her." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Between you and me, I heard them arguing a few times, him telling her she needed to sell more things, get more money together. When she hesitated about some family photo albums, he said something about how her past was holding her back." My blood ran cold, the picture becoming clearer and more frightening by the minute. "Did they say where they were going?" "When? Brazil, I think. Samantha mentioned their flight was tonight around 8. Is everything all right, Rosie? You look terrible if you don't mind my saying." I thanked her and made my way back to the taxi, my determination growing despite my physical weakness. On the ride to my next destination, I used my phone to search for information about Jordan. Samantha had mentioned he worked at her company, but when I called her office, they informed me no one named Jordan had ever worked there. Through social media searches, I found what appeared to be his profile. The handsome face smiled confidently back at me, but it was the comments on some older posts that made my heart sink. References from women about money they'd never received back, accusations of lies and manipulation, all eventually deleted, but visible in screenshots shared by others trying to warn people. One post in particular stood out from a woman claiming to be his ex-fiancé. Be warned about Jordan Mills. He targets young women with assets or family money, isolates them from their support systems, then convinces them to liquidate everything for a fresh start that never materializes. By the time you realize what's happening, he's gone with everything you own. With shaking hands, I called the airport to confirm there was indeed a flight to Rio de Janeiro scheduled for 8:15 p.m., 5 hours from now, just enough time if I hurried. I directed the taxi driver to make one more stop before the airport, the police station. I needed to file reports about the unauthorized sales and bank withdrawals. The process was frustratingly slow, with officers explaining that since Samantha was an authorized user on the accounts and my adult daughter, it became a civil matter rather than criminal theft. But the property sales were illegal. I insisted, showing them the documents. Yes, but you'll need to file for an injunction to stop the transfer of funds, the officer explained patiently. That's going to take time, more time than you have before their flight. When I finally left the station, I had filed reports, but had no immediate help. It was up to me now. As the taxi headed toward the airport, I recalled my final words to Samantha on the phone. You forgot one thing. What she didn't realize was that those words were more significant than just the legal ownership of the apartment and car. She had forgotten who she was, where she came from, and most importantly, that no matter what, she had a mother who would never give up on her. The pain in my chest had intensified to a steady throb by the time the taxi pulled up to the departures terminal. According to my discharge instructions, I should have been lying in bed with minimal movement, not rushing through an airport on a desperate mission to save my daughter. Inside the terminal was a chaotic swirl of travelers' announcements echoing overhead. I stopped at the information desk, explained my situation as briefly as possible, and was directed toward the international departures section. Security presented an obstacle I hadn't fully considered. Without a ticket, I couldn't proceed to the gates. Desperation made me approach a sympathetic-looking agent, showing my fresh surgical scar and explaining through tears that my daughter was about to leave the country with someone dangerous. Whether it was motherly determination or simply looking pitiable enough in my obvious post-surgical state, somehow I convinced a supervisor to escort me through, provided I remained with him at all times. Gate 47, he confirmed after checking the flight information. But we need to hurry. They'll be boarding soon. Moving as quickly as my weakened body would allow, we made our way through the terminal. Each step sent shooting pain through my chest, but the thought of Samantha kept me moving forward. And then, through the crowd, I saw them. Samantha was sitting at the gate, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking simultaneously excited and anxious. Beside her sat a man I presumed to be Jordan, tall and handsome, as his pictures suggested, with an arm draped possessively around her shoulders. Samantha, I called out, my voice weaker than I intended. Her head snapped up, eyes widening in shock. Mum, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the hospital. Jordan straightened immediately, his charming smile not quite reaching his eyes as he sized me up. You must be Rosie. Samantha's told me so much about you. I'm sorry we couldn't meet under better circumstances. I'm sure she has, I replied, keeping my focus on my daughter. Samantha, we need to talk. Now. Jordan's arm tightened around her. We're about to board, actually. Maybe you can call her when we land. This isn't about you, I told him firmly, then turned back to Samantha. Honey, there's something you need to know. It's about the apartment and car. Samantha looked uncomfortable. Mum, I know you're upset about me not telling you sooner, but I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions. The apartment and car aren't yours to sell, I stated clearly, pulling the property documents from my bag. They're in my name, always have been. Jordan's expression darkened slightly. What are you talking about? Show him the papers from the sales, Samantha, I urged. Check whose name is on the title. Confusion crossed her face as she dug through her purse, pulling out folded papers. As she scanned them, the colour drained from her face. I don't understand. I thought... What's going on? Jordan demanded, grabbing the papers from her hands. As he read, his entire demeanour shifted, charm falling away like a mask. You told me the apartment was worth over $300,000, he accused Samantha, voice low but intense, and that the money was already in your account. It is, Samantha insisted, then looked at me uncertainly. Isn't it? The money is in escrow, I explained. And since the sales weren't legally authorized, they'll be voided. The money will be returned to the buyers. Jordan stood abruptly, his charming facade completely gone. You said you had assets, that you were getting an inheritance. I never said that. Samantha protested, confusion and hurt evident in her expression. So what am I supposed to do with the business lease I've already put a deposit on? He demanded, voice rising. With the empty promises you made. The security supervisor who had accompanied me stepped closer, sensing the escalating tension. Is everything all right here? Jordan glared at him, then back at Samantha. You lied to me. No, Jordan, I never lied. I thought... Samantha's voice trailed off as realization began to dawn. Other travelers were watching now, some with concern, others with undisguised curiosity. Jordan seemed to become aware of the attention, his expression shifting as he calculated his next move. This is ridiculous, he finally said, gathering his carry-on bag. I can't believe I wasted months on this. Months? Samantha echoed. But you said you loved me. We're supposed to get married tomorrow. That was before I found out you've got nothing, he snapped. No money, no property, nothing but debt and a clingy mother. The cruel words hung in the air as Samantha stared at him in shock. I wanted to step in to defend her, but something told me she needed to see this play out on her own. Jordan checked his watch. Look, it's been fun, but I've got a plane to catch. You should probably stay here and sort out your mess. You're still going without me? Samantha's voice had become small. What would be the point of you coming now? He asked coldly. With that, he turned and walked toward the boarding gate, not looking back once. The airport security supervisor cleared his throat awkwardly. Mom, do you need assistance? Samantha didn't seem to hear him. She sat frozen, staring after Jordan, as though waiting for him to turn around and say it was all a misunderstanding. When he disappeared down the jetway without a backward glance, something in her seemed to break. Oh my God, she whispered, hands beginning to shake. What have I done? The security supervisor was kind enough to escort us to a quiet room, typically used for passengers needing privacy due to bereavement or other sensitive situations. Samantha sat across from me, her face blank with shock, tears streaming down her cheeks, unchecked. He's gone, she kept repeating. He just left me here. I wanted to reach across and hold her, to tell her everything would be all right, but I knew we needed to address what had happened first. Samantha, look at me. Slowly she raised her eyes to meet mine. I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning, how you met Jordan, what he told you, all of it. She took a shuddering breath. We didn't meet at work like I told you. It was at a finance seminar I attended representing the company. He said he was a consultant specializing in international business opportunities. As she spoke, the full story emerged. Jordan had charmed her with tales of his success abroad, showing her photos of beautiful properties he claimed to own in Brazil, and sharing stories of the exciting life they could build together. He'd insisted their connection was special, unique, moving quickly from flattery to talk of marriage and a future together. He said I was wasting my potential at my job. she continued, wiping tears away. That I was meant for bigger things, but that I needed to break free from everything holding me back. Including me, I said softly. Samantha nodded, fresh tears spilling. He said you were keeping me dependent on you intentionally, that giving me the apartment and car while keeping them in your name was a way to control me. She looked up, anguish in her eyes. I believed him, Mum. I actually believed that you, who worked double shifts to put me through college, were trying to hold me back. The pain of her words cut deep, but I pushed past it. What about the money, Samantha? The bank called me about withdrawals. Her face crumpled. He said we needed capital to start our new life. At first, it was just selling some of my things. Then he suggested I help myself to some of your savings since, as he put it, you owed me for all the ways you'd controlled my life. She covered her face with her hands. When I hesitated, he'd get angry, then apologetic, saying I didn't trust him enough, that I wasn't committed to our future. Eventually, I gave in, telling myself I'd pay you back once our business was successful. And the jewellery? I asked, remembering the emptied safe deposit box. He said we should sell it for additional startup capital, that heirlooms were just another way families bound you to the past. She looked up, desperation in her eyes. I didn't sell them yet. They're in my checked luggage. Relief washed over me. At least that could be recovered. What about the apartment and car sales? Jordan handled most of it. He said he had connections who could expedite everything. I signed papers he put in front of me. She paused, realization dawning. I never actually saw the final documents. He said he was taking care of all the details. The picture was becoming clearer. Jordan had isolated Samantha, turned her against me, and convinced her to liquidate everything of value, all while planning to disappear with the money once it cleared. When did you stop talking to your friends? I asked gently, remembering how her social circle had seemed to shrink in recent months. Samantha looked surprised by the question. Jordan said they were jealous of our relationship, that they were trying to sabotage us because they couldn't stand to see me happy. Eventually, it was easier to just stop contacting them. Classic isolation tactics. He had systematically cut her off from everyone who might have seen through his deception or offered her perspective. The last few weeks, he became more insistent about finalizing everything, she continued. When your surgery came up, he said it was the perfect opportunity to make our move without a confrontation. She looked at me with haunted eyes. He almost convinced me not to even call you. Said it would be easier for everyone if I just left. But I couldn't do that, Mum. Despite everything he said about you, I couldn't just disappear. That small act of rebellion, calling me despite his manipulation, had been what saved her. If she hadn't called, if I hadn't mentioned the legal ownership of the property, they would have boarded that plane together, and I might never have seen my daughter again. I feel so stupid, she whispered. So completely, utterly stupid. I reached across and took her hands in mine. You're not stupid, Samantha. You were manipulated by someone who's obviously done this before. Someone who knew exactly what buttons to push and how to isolate you from the people who care about you. But I believed him over you. After everything you've done for me, I believed a stranger over my own mother. That's how people like him operate. They're experts at what they do. I squeezed her hands. What matters now is that you're safe. The security supervisor knocked gently on the door, informing us that they'd located Samantha's checked luggage and had it pulled from the flight. Another small mercy. As Samantha processed everything, I made several calls arranging to halt the property sales and begin the process of fraud reports. The pain in my chest had intensified to concerning levels, but I pushed through it, focusing on the immediate needs of the situation. What happens now? Samantha finally asked, looking lost. Now, I said, exhaling slowly against the pain, we go home and start picking up the pieces. The taxi ride from the airport to my home was quiet, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Samantha clutched the recovered luggage containing our family heirlooms like a lifeline, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. As we pulled into the driveway, a wave of dizziness washed over me, the strain of the day finally catching up with my weakened body. Samantha noticed immediately her own troubles, temporarily forgotten as she helped me inside and insisted I lie down. "You shouldn't have left the hospital," she said, guilt evident in her voice as she helped me to the couch. "This is my fault too. I'd do it again in a heartbeat," I assured her, relieved to finally be horizontal as the room had begun to spin. The next few days were a blur of recovery and damage control. My doctor friend Patricia came by to check on me, scolding me for my reckless hospital departure while administering necessary care. Samantha never left my side, attending to my needs with a dedication born partly of guilt and partly of love. Between rest periods, we made calls to banks, lawyers, and realtors, working to unravel the financial mess Jordan had created. Fortunately, the property sales hadn't been finalized, and with proof of my ownership and police reports about the fraud, they were voided. The money withdrawn from the accounts proved more challenging. Much of it had been transferred to untraceable offshore accounts Jordan had set up. The bank's fraud department was investigating, but they warned us recovery was unlikely. As my physical strength returned, Samantha and I began having deeper conversations about what had happened and why she had been vulnerable to Jordan's manipulation. "I think I was looking for something," she admitted one evening as we sat in the living room, mugs of tea in hand. "Some excitement or purpose that felt missing in my life." "That's normal at your age," I replied. "But what made you feel you couldn't talk to me about it?" She was quiet for a moment. "Jordan said something once that stuck with me. He said you had lived your whole life in one place working the same job and that you wanted the same for me because you couldn't imagine anything else." The words stung, but I recognized the kernel of truth within them. "I have played it safe in many ways," I acknowledged. "After your father left, security became my priority. Maybe I did project some of that onto you. But that didn't give me the right to believe the worst about you, to throw away our relationship for someone I barely knew. You know," I said carefully, "before you were born, I almost made a similar mistake." Samantha looked up in surprise. "You did," I nodded. "His name was Robert. Charming, exciting, full of big plans. He convinced me to quit nursing school and loan him money for a business venture." I smiled ruefully at the memory. "My mother saw right through him, but I was too blinded to listen. When the business failed and he disappeared with what was left of the money, she took me back without a single 'I told you so.'" "You never told me that story before," Samantha said quietly. "It wasn't my proudest moment, but it taught me something important about forgiveness and second chances." I reached for her hand. "Which is why I want you to stop beating yourself up. Yes, you made a mistake, but it's one you can learn from and move beyond." Over the following weeks, we established a new routine. Samantha moved back in temporarily while we sorted out her living situation. She contacted her employer, explaining a family emergency had caused her abrupt absence, and was fortunately able to return to her position. The hardest step for her was reaching out to the friends she had pushed away under Jordan's influence. To her surprise and relief, most welcomed her back with open arms, having sensed something was wrong, but not knowing how to help. My sister Jackie came to stay for a while, providing additional support and perspective. As a twice-divorced psychologist, she had valuable insights into manipulation and recovery. "The warning signs seem obvious in hindsight," she explained during a family dinner, "but when you're in it, they're easy to miss or rationalize away. That's why these people are so dangerous. They're counting on your natural tendency to trust and to see the best in others." Samantha nodded, pushing food around her plate. "I keep thinking about all the red flags I ignored, how he always had an answer for everything, how he isolated me from everyone who cared about me, how he rushed everything so I wouldn't have time to think." "That's how they operate," Jackie confirmed. "They create a false sense of urgency so you don't have time to consult others or think critically." The financial damage was substantial, but not insurmountable. We worked with financial advisors to create a recovery plan with Samantha, insisting on taking responsibility for repaying the lost funds over time. The emotional recovery proved more challenging than the financial one. Samantha struggled with shame and self-doubt, questioning her judgment and hesitating to make even small decisions. With Jackie's encouragement, she began attending a support group for survivors of manipulation and financial abuse, finding solace in knowing she wasn't alone in her experience. For my part, I had to examine the ways in which my own fears and protective instincts might have contributed to the situation. Had I fostered too much dependence? Had my desire to help financially actually delayed her full independence? These were uncomfortable questions, but necessary ones. One evening, about 3 months after the airport confrontation, Samantha joined me on the porch swing, something clearly on her mind. "I've been thinking about getting my own place again," she said cautiously. "Nothing expensive, just a simple apartment where I can stand on my own 2 feet. I felt a momentary pang at the thought of her leaving, but nodded encouragingly. "I think that's a wonderful idea." "Really?" She seemed surprised by my easy agreement. "You're not worried?" "Of course I'm worried," I admitted with a small laugh. "That's part of being a mother, but I trust you, Samantha. You've learned from this experience and you're stronger for it." She leaned her head against my shoulder, just as she used to do as a child. "Thank you for coming after me that day, for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." "That's the thing about being a parent," I told her softly. "The love doesn't stop even when things get hard, especially when things get hard." 6 months after what we now simply called the airport day, Samantha stood proudly in the centre of her new apartment. It was modest but entirely hers, from the lease in her name to the furniture she had carefully budgeted for and purchased herself. "What do you think?" she asked, watching my face anxiously as I took in the cozy space. "It's perfect," I told her honestly. "It feels like you," and it did. Unlike her previous apartment that had been furnished quickly and somewhat impersonally, this space reflected her journey. Photos of family and reconnected friends adorned the walls. Bookshelves held volumes on financial independence and self-worth, alongside her favourite novels. A small desk in the corner was set up for the online business courses she had enrolled in, determined to truly understand financial management. My own recovery had progressed well. The heart condition that had necessitated surgery was now well managed with medication and lifestyle changes. I had even started volunteering at a local community centre, finding purpose in helping others beyond my immediate family circle. "I have something for you," Samantha said, retrieving a gift bag from the kitchen counter. Inside was a leather-bound journal with "New Beginnings" embossed on the cover. "Open it," she encouraged. Inside on the first page she had written, "To my mother who showed me that true strength isn't never falling, but rising every time we fall. Thank you for catching me when I needed it most." Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged her tightly. "It's beautiful, thank you." "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she said, as we settled on her new sofa, "about how quickly I was willing to throw away everything real for something that turned out to be completely false. We all want to believe in magic sometimes," I said gently, "in shortcuts to happiness." She nodded. "The thing is, I realise now that what Jordan offered wasn't real freedom. It was just another kind of cage, prettier maybe, but a cage nonetheless." "And now," I asked, "now I'm building something real. Something that can't be taken away because it's based on truth and hard work." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes in a way I hadn't seen in too long. "I even met someone new." My heart skipped a beat. "Oh," seeing my expression, she laughed. "Don't worry, it's nothing serious yet. Just coffee a few times with a guy from my support group. We're taking it incredibly slowly, and you'll meet him long before anything significant happens." The relief must have shown on my face because she reached over and squeezed my hand. "I learned my lesson, Mum. No more whirlwind romances with strangers." Later that evening, after helping Samantha arrange the last of her kitchen supplies, I prepared to leave for my own home. At the door, she handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it when you get home," she instructed with a mysterious smile. Back in my quiet house, I unwrapped the package to find a beautiful silver frame containing a photo of Samantha and me from her college graduation. Below the photo was a small plaque engraved with the words, "For the woman who taught me that love means being there even when someone makes mistakes." The gift touched me deeply, representing not just our past, but our future built on a foundation stronger than before because it had been tested and had held. Over the next few months, Samantha flourished in her rebuilt life. She excelled at work, earning a promotion that came with new responsibilities and recognition of her talents. She maintained healthy boundaries in her budding new relationship, introducing him to friends and family early on and proceeding with appropriate caution. Most significantly, she started a small support network for other young women who had experienced similar situations, using her story to help others recognize the warning signs of manipulation and financial abuse. What began as informal coffee meetings grew into regular support sessions, eventually catching the attention of a local women's resource centre who invited her to speak at their events. Watching her transform her painful experience into a source of strength and wisdom for others filled me with a pride that defied description. At one of her speaking engagements, as I sat in the audience listening to her confidently share her journey from vulnerability to resilience, I reflected on the night of that fateful phone call. The panic, the fear, the desperate race to reach her before it was too late. "My mother's words saved me," Samantha was saying to the attentive audience. When she said, "You forgot one thing," she meant much more than just the legal ownership of property. She was reminding me of who I truly was, where I came from, and the genuine love that had always supported me. She looked directly at me, then eyes shining. "Sometimes we have to lose our way to truly find it, and sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who help us find our way back home." As the audience applauded, I wiped away tears, overwhelmed with gratitude that my daughter had not only found her way back, but had discovered a strength within herself she might never have known existed. The journey hadn't been easy for either of us. We had both been forced to examine uncomfortable truths about ourselves, to acknowledge vulnerabilities we might have preferred to ignore. But in doing so, we had forged a new relationship, one based not just on the natural bonds of mother and daughter, but on mutual respect, understanding, and the shared experience of overcoming adversity together. In the end, what Jordan had intended as destruction had instead become transformation. The painful breaking apart had led to a stronger rebuilding, and the love between us, tested by fire, had emerged not just intact, but deeper and more resilient than ever before. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between standing back and letting someone you love learn a painful lesson, or stepping in to protect them? How did you know what was the right thing to do? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for those we love is simply to be there ready to help them find their way back when they lose their path. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the wisdom to navigate your own challenging relationships with both courage and compassion.